All right, so hey guys, welcome to the Holy Hour podcast. This is the All Cure podcast. This is Gavin, and I'm joined
Donald.
by who? What?
Donald.
Hey man, how's it going?
Good, dude.
Yeah, we're in it. It's 2017.
In it to win it. Mm-hmm.
In it to win it. The new slogan for 2017.
And it started off so well, 2017. It's great.
Yeah, we did it. And now we're in the pornography era of 2017. Shit's gonna get dark quick.
I know. It really doesn't matter if we all die.
It doesn't. What better way to start off 2017 than with that line that just kicks it all off?
I know. just grabs that record right by the...
Totally. But we've been watching.
I'm not cussing in this episode.
No, this is a non-cussing, no alcohol, no cussing. We're reformed in 2017 after that last round of episodes that we couldn't use, the lost episodes.
The slurry episodes.
Yeah. But if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. This is an All Cure podcast.
Yeah.
And we have tried to make the conscious effort of doing album episodes. And we started out a little slow, a little out of order. And we're like, well, we got to keep these rolling for these ones that are these early ones that really play off each other, you know? And so tonight's episode is the epic album
Pornography.
Yes, 1982's Pornography. And yeah, a personal favorite. I think we can just come out and say it that I think we're both on board for this one as well.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of my faves.
Yeah. It's a weird one. It's a distinct Cure album for sure. When you line up ones that like really stand out, I would say this might be the most even distinct Cure album. Is that as long as we're doing super generalizations right off the bat, you know?
Distinct and defining.
Yeah.
Like of their image or whatever. Like, you know, I think when images of like, you know, say like casual fans of the band, when they picture Robert Smith, it's like that.
Yeah. And it really is that one when you step over the line too. It's like the I don't know. I'm totally thinking off the top of my head here, but it's almost like the ultimate like villain side of the Cure, you know, like like right. Where it's like the leader of the ones where like when you first scratch the surface of Cure stuff and you're wading through all the greatest hits compilations and everything, you're like, all right.
It's like, who's this bad boy?
Yeah, and
like,
they're like, oh, what's that?
if there's a police lineup of all the different Robert Smith era,
yeah, all the Cure albums, this would definitely be.
It's like number 3,
the thuggy one with the black eye and the leather coat and the number 4 there, Pornography, the one all in black and red with blood coming out of its eyes,
giant awesome hair, like
yeah. And then it is that attraction
image.
Yeah, it's that attraction too, just like that. Yeah. That sexy bad boy in high school that you know it's just trouble, but you still want to talk to him, you know? So
yeah. Then you find out he had a troubled past and he's really dark and sweet.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh. Look at his high tops. Oh.
There's a lot to this. And like every bad boy, there's a lot to it. So
I know.
So where do we begin? I don't know. I mean, but let's talk about initial love, just being two kids that, you know, if you haven't been following along the quick version of our story as we got into the Cure, tail end of Kiss Me era, Disintegration was the first album that came out that we got into. So we backtracked a lot. And what was your initial reaction to Pornography when you heard it? Because I mean, I guess at that point, probably initially, like a lot of us, Hanging Garden was the first one, and you pieced together that was the one and only single off of Pornography. Yeah. So you're like, well, what's up with this album? What was your reaction?
Pornography was a big one for me because it's one of the ones I knew like the single and kind of what was up with it. But it's one of the later records. I mean, one of the first ones I got, but it took me forever to get a tape back in the day, you know? Like I mowed lawns for that shit, so it took a couple weeks And when I got it, it's like,
yeah,
it kind of blew me away, and like, just with how dramatic it was.
right.
Just like we were saying with like the visual of it and the visual of the band at that time, and it just the lyrics were kind of up my alley,
Right.
and definitely at the age that I was listening to it, because there's just these lines to it, like it, where
yeah,
individual lines really really stick out. It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter if we all die, whatever.
right.
There's kind of some of that aspect to it that I connected to, like as a kid, just because it's just put out there,
right.
And
because lyrically, that's its whole thing in itself, but like it sounds like you're knocking it by saying, well, yeah, being a middle school kid, the lyrics you latched on to, but in the sense, that's why they're so brilliant, is because they, as adults and stuff, were able to tap into the teen angst and the, it was like, to me, that's fucking teen angst more than even like Nirvana and shit, or it's just like that is the essence of like every middle schooler in suburban America, is these like, it's like over dramatic to a sense, and like, it's just like
very over dramatic.
It's like we'll fall into the walls, even if you don't even exactly know what it means. It's like you make it mean it. But yeah, that's cool. See, do you feel like it was a pretty like positive reaction right off the bat? Were you ever like, what the fuck, and I'm just gonna sit on this one for a while? Because that's definitely how I was. But
never really sat on it. Like,
yeah,
it's just one of those ones where I was just like, I kept checking like my, and like my Walkman, like the batteries would get low, it'd fuck up your tape, and it would get all wavy sounding. It's one of those ones where I like stopped and checked my batteries
just to make sure. Yeah, it's like, because there's
just there's just so many little swirly parts to it.
Yeah,
like exactly. Like what's happening? Is this right? Like and I loved. I don't know, and I guess maybe it was just an early sign of, of things that I love today. Like I love that feeling of just like, is this right? When I hear things, like that's it. My ears perk up like a dog.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a squeaky toy, But that's one of the things that just like drew me in.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, definitely not love at first sight for me. Like, I was more just in pieces. I would gradually love it, like over time. Like at first reaction, I was definitely cool with it, but it was like we're saying, we were just kind of like, whoa, this is like way more like harsh than a lot of the Cure I was used to, because I fell into like, like the Kiss Me side, In Between Days and stuff, even just like Head on the Door and stuff, like had that.
All the
but it was
initially caught.
Yeah, because it was always balanced out for every like kind of nice romantic pop song. There was like a darker, depressing song, but there was never really that like cutting, deep, dark edge of like
that trap door of dark.
Because
you fall into and just like fuck.
So like my adolescent melodramatic heart disintegration was that enough, but like not to that point where I'm like, whoa, this is like interpretation going on, and it's not a love song that's gone wrong. There's other shit here, and as opposed to just your girlfriend not calling you back or something. It's like there's definitely some deeper rooted problems going on.
Existential, like, what's the point?
Yeah, and it's weird though, because like even the context.
Are you ready for that?
Yeah, it's like 12-year-old. I was just like, which is great. I'm glad I didn't fully understand it as a 7th grader. But like coming out of Faith, even like now and then, it's funny how like Faith still has that like kind of romantic side to the tragedy, even, where it feels like it's little, we touched on that in the Faith episode for sure, where it was like, and it was just kind of that sad part of grieving or whatever, and then out of nowhere comes this definite like anger and cutting.
I was thinking about the same thing today. Like, this is like the flip side of that coin. Where you say Faith kind of has this, lyrically and just mood wise, it's the other side of the coin to Pornography. Like, it's just you can't have one without the other. You can't have this sweet, like, kind of like a
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm sad. These things bum me out. But on the other side, like on the surface, is just gurgling chaos.
Yeah.
Of just like moods and feelings, like.
And which totally makes sense. And what we touched on
One's
in
like
the
trying
faith.
to understand.
Yeah. Nah, it makes total sense. And like we're saying in that faith episode of just like stages of grief, even, and like the idea of how faith is very funeral heavy, and it does feel like the death just happened, and then like and then the obvious next step is the violence and the angry side of grieving, and that feels like pornography. As we talked about like major themes of faith, like I'd say like the overlining, even just if you had to like dumb it down to themes of pornography, a lot of it is just violence and anger, like in depression still, but like a more violent
and dumbed down is a really good way to put it, because like some of the lyrics are very like, some of them are kind of dumb.
Yeah, well, it's weird because it's like,
but it's just like a line will be dumb, like not the whole point of the song, but just like this very like Bob Dylan-esque but sad and confused.
Yeah,
like 100 Years is just like.
Yeah, that's why it's like the just the spiders in your skin and shit, like where it's like it all makes sense in the context.
Freshly
and shit.
Flies.
And all that, and it's just like
it's like an 8-year-old writing a story.
But I mean, and in the sense of maybe it's just like super fan defending too. It's like, because we said the reverse of it for Faith, of like, wow, what a fucking mature record this was about death for such a young person to be writing. And then there were even like a few things I looked about, like reviews of this, where people kind of bash the lyrics and saying it's just kind of an immature, like whiny. Yeah, they're just like, whatever, you're just stuck in your little like adolescence of like. But if you think about
existential adolescence kind of comments.
Yeah, but if you think about it, like anger is kind of dumb, It's like, it is you being dumb when you get fucking mad, and it's inevitable.
I'm going to punch a wall.
Yeah, I mean, all that shit is
point?
like when you're so frustrated and you're full of like just violence and anger, it is dumb. And not that the lyrics are dumb by any means, but like it has that sense of, if you pull out one sentence out of context, it could seem a little more like juvenile, but like,
so it reminds me of like in films and books and things, or say like, there'll be like a family tragedy kind of thing, and like all the family comes home, and each person in the story will kind of represent like the stages of grief, where someone's like angry and like, lashing out and like, oh, he's drunk again.
Right.
And they'll be like, come on, everyone, it's sad, but we can all do this together. And then there'll be the person that's like not even dealing, that's not dealing with it. And
I feel like pornography, denial,
pornography is like the drunk college son that's not getting over.
Totally. Fuck you! I'm taking the car out and this bottle of whiskey. Yeah.
He wrecked mom's car.
Oh my goodness! I hope he doesn't get drunk and drive.
Yeah, exactly. That's pornography.
Yeah, and and I think it's done wonderfully, because fuck, that's genius.
And it's not demeaning.
Nah. I hope it doesn't come off that way, because I think to harness that, especially on the heels of Faith, that was like an album that did it in such a graceful way. I love like something that's like 1-2 punch of something that's done so like gracefully and with class, and then it just fucking like is a drunken mess the next turn. So I mean, it's
one of the classic back-to-backs. To me, of records, of solid records, like that's tough to do, and like they nailed it.
Because they could have totally done the same thing in a sense, and then they could have just totally made a stupid record, but it seems like a natural progression, Like, it's like so hard to make that. And it's weird too, and I mean, kind of backtrack to get the filler for talking about the album too, of how they recorded it and stuff, and it was in a sense because like they didn't have Mike Hedges, they were done basically at that point. He like went off to do the Banshees, and it sounded like there was some money issues where he was getting paid more money for that, but it seemed like everybody was kind of on board with just like working with somebody different, not even so much like a bad terms kind of thing, but
I don't think it was bad terms at all, because they were all buddies, like, before and after.
It's, and then strangely enough and weird that we've kind of stumbled into that like later, like piecing together that Phil Thornley produced this with him, and I was like, oh shit, really? That's where that connection came in, where Hill later appears like the bass player on the top and stuff, as everyone knows.
Yeah, totally.
But weird, yeah. Like production wise, I think
he did a great job.
Yeah, and it's hard to say.
Amazing
like
job.
Robert was definitely calling a lot, if not most of the shots, but at the same time, somebody had to be wrangling this fucking madness in, and I was like,
and there was piles of madness.
Yeah, and it sounds like that was kind of the through line, and which makes sense because the songs are supposed to be kind of madness. I don't know. It's one of those, again, chicken or the egg things, or was it all the other exterior shit that was just boiling that made those songs that way, or was it the fact that
was it the drugs,
or was it were the songs just meant to be that crazy in the sense that it made everything else boil, so it's because it seems like at this point, context wise, they're coming off the heels of Faith, which was not a very light album in itself, but intense, like,
and some success.
Yeah, and like, just still building somehow with success from all these like weird darker albums, and like even though this one didn't get critically praised, apparently, it like still was like entered the charts as their highest chart. I think it was like UK 8 was like the chart thing, and which is super weird. And,
what an amazing time.
And that time was May of 1982, if anybody didn't quite catch that. So that was just crazy. And just in the sense that seeing that they recorded it January to April of 82, and then it came out in May. Like, how fucking weird is that? Like,
it's almost 81.
But no, I mean, weird in the sense of like nowadays when somebody records an album, then they sit on it for like 8 fucking months because they want to release it like during the spring, or and it's just so much dumb bullshit and prep time of everything. It was just like, that's fucking cool, man. It was like the band just went in there, they recorded this album, it was out like literally the next month after it was done. They just
went in and did it, and did it hard.
And that's why so many bands are able to just crank out albums like at least 2 a year almost, It was like,
and it makes me think of, say, just to like modern times where, with like digital albums and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I think like Kanye West or something, like, he'll put an album up for like digital release in the cloud or whatever, and he'll just go back and change things like all the time on his records. So when you go to listen to it, there's something different to it. There's something different. There's something new. Like
we'll just swap out like a new like mix of it or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
They'll go in and tweak and add parts. And imagine like going in and making a record like Pornography, where you said like 4 months or whatever. Done, finished, out the door, on tape, like, and it's done. But just just a lot of artists nowadays, like, they have years, or
too much time,
an infinite amount of time to make a piece, and it's weird to like.
Well, even the Cure in themselves, I mean, not even a knock on it, is just the time and the state that they're at as a legendary band. But I mean, can you imagine them ever going in and recording an album in like 4 months and then literally putting it out like a month later? I mean, it's like, how weird that is. Like, maybe they do, but I feel like it's just one of these things now where it's like inevitable, where everybody just like record shit, then they go on vacation for like half a year, then they come back and send it off to fucking Joe Schmo to master it for another 6 months, and then next thing you know, like 5 years have passed, and it's like, good God,
there's board meetings,
fucking thing out. Like then like especially if it's on a major label, like all this shit just has to happen because they don't want to put it out at the same time as the new Star Wars movie and shit. It's just like, good Lord, just put the fucking thing out. And
there's so much beauty to that, and I think that's that's that spark and energy to Pornography that kind of gives me a boner. Is that it's just like a quick snippet of a fucking raucous, like, just some rough waters with the band, and just like Robert and Simon were feuding, and like Lowell was at peak, peak Lowell or something. Like he was,
whatever was going on there was going on.
Well,
Robert,
I mean, Robert sounds like he's kind of in a brat mode. Like,
yeah. I mean, it sounds like going back to what we were just saying, coming off the heels of Faith, or we even finished that episode talking about how like playing those songs every night will just wear the fuck out of you. And it sounded like they're just playing tons of shows still, even going back to like Three Imaginary Boys. Like it sounded like it's just constant for the these first 4 albums in 4 or 5 years worth, where they're like playing 200 shows a year and stuff, and like it just like is insane. And they're just finally starting to fucking just hate each other and stuff, not even so much like hate, but like you're just around people that much, and he's trying to artistically like be a director to this like weird ass vision that he sort of has but doesn't, and then like at the same time still wanting to just party with these dudes, and it sounds like there's like a lot of just push and pull of imploding from the inside. I mean, any band, anyone that's played in a band knows that like 3 weeks together is usually enough time, let alone like 4 really intense albums and years together would just like be so exhausting that of course something like Pornography, next thing you know you're like rubbing lipstick on your eyes and bleeding out on stage and shit. It's bound to happen. But
and it's just like you find out later that like Robert and the Roadies did a bunch of acid.
Yes, I mean,
and you're like, fuck them, and like, assholes, how come they didn't
invite me? Which does lead us to probably their most widely open drug use album, like I think LSD and just boozing out everywhere. I don't know what is up, but it seems to be the one that they most openly will admit that was like, there was some heavy shit going on and just chaos during the recording sessions. They said there was like even days where like, I think that's where Phil Thornley probably came in handy, where he would like be able to wrangle it in a bit more, but
or just facilitate. I'm starting some rumors.
But like we're like
I don't think he did that.
Couple of days worth where they wouldn't even accomplish anything, and that's got to be frustrating as shit, especially if you're making an album like this where you're just like.
But you got to go through that, like if you shrink what we were talking about, like modern, where you go away, to an island for 2 months while you're recording to like, get things in perspective.
Oh yeah.
If you narrow it down to like 4 months, like a fucking day, when you're getting down into some weird shit like that, like you motherfuckers might need a day to just go like,
totally.
Like what the fuck did we just do? And it's like I think we got trashed and we banged on toms
for like a day.
For fucking 4 hours.
I mean, you can only imagine. I mean, you almost start to feel sorry for like Chris Perry and stuff, like their management, when they just come in like, what is happening in here? It's like there's like,
I know.
We got this, man. Everything's great. We got you.
And like Robert's singing behind like a wall of beer cans. Just stacked up. Like that's what? Something that's one of those rumors from the record that. Turns out to be true.
Yeah,
because I remember reading it when I was like younger and was just like, I've always loved that vision of that. It's just like, man, if you make something, like, get in it, like, stay in it, and like,
they were like sleeping on the floor in there and shit, and like,
fucking, that's great. Like, I love that. Like it but makes me love the record. It's so endearing.
And it comes through. I mean, and like, and in a weird way too, like we're saying, with that shorter span of time of cranking it all out, not dwelling on stuff, but really diving in.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my overall themes or like things to sum up the album in a positive way was that how like sparse it is, but it's not thin sounding. It's like the first layer. I mean, when you listen to it, there's not like tons of layers going on like later Cure shit so much. I mean, there is, but it's more like you could still kind of pick out each little part, but they all hold so much weight, like Faith, but at the same time,
it's not a pile of mush.
Yeah,
it's not a sonic mush. And like, I read a review, I see what you're saying. Like, I read a review. So I'm smoking some pot since we're talking about doing drugs.
Right on.
And
I mean,
and this, but of an early reviewer might have like a goth Phil Spector or something like that, like a goth Phil Spector Wall of Sound or whatever. And it's like that dude did not know what he's talking about because it wasn't.
Right.
Because that would be like that mushy, mushy in a good way.
Right.
Like you just think everything's blended together, and it's not like you were saying. It is like there's a lot of crazy shit going on, but there's a very defined like that's one synth part.
That was like one track. Yeah, that's what I meant. Like guitar part. Tracks. If you think of it all as like you're mixing it and then like on one track, like a
song sandwich.
Yeah.
There's only 5 layers.
Yeah. Because, I mean, there's a lot of later shit, like Disintegration in particular. You listen to that, I mean, stuff just blends and merges. You don't even know what the fuck when it turns from a guitar into a keyboard on a lot of shit.
It's like a rippling sea of sound.
Yeah, there's just so much of that.
Gurgling around.
But, I mean, on this, like, you know there's like a keyboard part going, and it's got, like, crazy weight and all kinds of cool shit going on. But it is just one thing. And, like, when you really listen to it, there really is, like 8 tracks on a lot of the songs. It's not that much, but like it just holds so much weight and like, and a cool like observation of that is like when they play them live. Like, I mean, now they're able to fill it in a lot more when they play it live. But like you watch those old videos of like Hanging Garden in particular, it's like,
God damn it,
it's fucking awesome, But it's weird how like it almost sounds thinner. Well, I mean, it does live, but at the same time, it's really not that different than the recording, other than maybe some keyboards not taken out. But you realize it's like, oh, that's all just bass going like, dong, 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 and it's just like the fucking drums going nuts, and it's crazy. I love it. It's like a beautiful country song, but done in a goth rock way. Where you're just like, oh man, everything was like right where it needed to be.
It is stripped down and sincere.
I found a cool quote from, I think it was from that 10 Imaginary Boys book. It was Chris Perry, who was pretty, kind of annoying, his manager style of like not being super on board with this album until, of course, as any manager would be probably, but he actually had a good like point when he was like summing up the process of like recording and putting this record out. He was just like, yeah, it was weird, like kind of paraphrasing, of course, but he was saying like something along the lines of like Three Imaginary Boys was just like fueled by being young and naive, and then like 17 Seconds had like a clear cut vision. And then Faith was like just fueled by like difficulty and like under difficult circumstances and stuff. And then like Pornography was like if you take all those and like wrap it into like, one awful like mess of a blanket, which makes sense. I mean, I think that's why it's genius. But at the same time, I don't know if he was saying it in a positive way. But yeah, I mean, you take like just being naive, having a vision still, and then just having all that like difficulty that like Faith had of the next step of their lives. I mean, it really sums it up.
Aren't like some good things? I know it really does. Aren't some good things difficult? Like,
yeah, exactly. You gotta go there, especially if it's sincere. Like if like, and I think like it's sad because you don't want these kids to be going through this shit. But like, I mean, it was a part that also matched up with what was going on in their fucking lives. So we've mentioned in the past of like things to build context to before we dive into actual songs. 1982 in general, and I actually looked a few funny ones up, like going back to our Just Like Heaven episode where we were wondering.
I was 16.
Yeah. This one, you were probably about 5 or 6 when this came out. So that's fucking weird, don't you think? Like, I was definitely 5, so you're a few months older than me there. So you've probably been about 6 when this came out, and just thinking that my kid's like 4, almost, gonna be 5 next year, to just think that like, wow, that's like pretty weird. But 1982, it definitely was the year that E.T. came out, to refer back to our Just Like Heaven episode. So E.T. came out when like June of this year, so barely pre-E.T. So I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett was a number 1 hit. Chariots of Fire was a major theme, or a major Oscar winner, and Ebony and Ivory was a hit song.
I love that song, and I love the Chariots of Fire song.
They're all pretty good songs, but
I still kind of like the Chariots of Fire.
Yeah, it's pretty beautiful.
I like that movie too. Like when I was a kid, I remember watching it.
It's like, what? They're running? What is it? But so a lot of the heart of the Cold War and Reagan, Yeah.
Oh God.
Just
and
all
we're
this
there
like,
now.
yeah.
Oh man.
There was a lot of dark shit though. Like when you looked up like just a general of 82, like it was like
I was
nobody
nervous of nukes and Russians.
nobody was like really like throwing out like a lot of like really awesome positive things. It was like nothing like huge. Was like the Tylenol murders, you know, like when they were like, remember like swapping out Tylenol tablets with like cyanide and shit, and like so they had all that huge Tylenol recall. Just like
Don Henley was pumping out solo records.
Shit was getting dark. So I mean, maybe Robert was onto something, you know, and like
He was.
the Dow Jones was up, so that tells you something crooked's going on. Lots of bombings, like a lot of terrorist bombings and like plane crashes. Tons of fucking plane crashes. The one that hit like the 14th Street Bridge in DC and shit, and
oh snap.
yeah, so like all that weird kind of shit. Thriller came out in November, so a little later, but yeah, so,
which is also dark.
Yeah, like fucking.
I mean, if you're looking at like, you know, the pop world.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like
there's
just this weird
zombies and werewolves and
Halloween song coming out in November. You know, it's like, what? Still never understood that.
That's Michael Jackson flexing his balls. Like,
I don't give a fuck. It's not Halloween. Like, like what? You're talking about like spooky shit. What?
I'm taking out Thanksgiving.
It's so weird. I never understood that. Like why everybody was so cool with like basically the equivalent of Monster Mash being like not just a single but like the fucking title of his record, and it's like what? It'd be like putting out like a Santa song in like June or something, you know? It's like I love fucking Christmas. I mean, you got a problem with it?
And if it's a strong enough song, it's
like
take off. You know, it's like
I'm all on board. I love Halloween, but I was like, what the fuck? What? Why is nobody questioning this? But
that's where things were.
It's sold, yeah. So whatever. I guess I don't have any room to argue it. But so what do you think about the actual song? Should we dive into some tunes? It leads off. There's only 8 tracks again. Another short numbered album, but I guess they're all kind of longer tracks. Comes out blazing. 100 Years. Probably the most reoccurring song from this album to appear in like set list and stuff too. Strangely enough.
Yeah, it's an odd one too to be a reoccurring one. For me, it's just like drum machine, and I think it's like the first use of a drum machine.
Yeah, I think so.
I think
first non-lull track on a Cure album, maybe drum wise.
No, he programmed the drums.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah,
well, good on him.
Fuck yeah, and he nailed it, man. Like what a.
Yeah, and first he played keyboards on it. So his first keyboard plan on recording and live. So that's cool. Yeah, it's a cool song. I love it. I feel like it's a good kickoff track, you know? It's like kind of one of those first kind of like overly long, rambly that would kind of become like more of a formula for Cure songs too.
It's his Bob Dylan lyrics, like his Bob. It's like it just reminds me of Bob Dylan if he was all gothy, like like when Bob Dylan got weird.
Dylan.
Yeah, like goth Dylan. but it's just like this like stream of dark consciousness, like shit, like like I don't know. It's like all these dope phrases, and it sounds like they're just like, to me sometimes it just sounds like lyrically like. He just wrote he wrote some really good phrases, some goofy ones, threw them in a hat, and just picked them out.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely
weird.
Not like a story song by any means, but I mean, the overall stories and emotions there. But like, yeah. And I felt like I've probably said this before at some point, but I feel like this is like the. Like first version of like Disintegration, the song is kind of in the same vein, where it's just like this kind of like cool bass line over like a loopish drum, if not an actual drum loop, and like having just like this cool like almost rhythmic more than content of lyrical, you know, just like the like rapping Dylan style, you know. but yeah, I totally know what you mean by that aspect, and I think he nails it. I love it. Yeah, I'm like. It's one of those ones when they play it live, I'm always a little torn because I love it, but I know it's a longer song, so it's like, all right, we're going on this journey now, you know.
I always wish they did more of that with just real simple drum machine. Like, that was some ahead of its time. And it's not ahead of its time shit, but, like, they did it well. Like, to me, it's almost like some of the first, like, shoegazy shit. Like, you know, it's just like a drum machine, just like a real basic, like, just on a loop.
Yeah.
And just, like, crazy fucking guitars. Like,
yeah, I love, like,
you know, that's one of the songs where I check the batteries in my Walkman. I'm like, because what does that sound?
Yeah, it's really just a well placed, like, weird, like, just that, you know, it's just like a cool, like riff that you kind of just do through the song.
It's like a siren going off in the back of the whole time. It's like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, is this?
It's pretty awesome. Like,
yeah,
it's cool that it's not like the driving. You know, it's like the bass is just like totally fucking laying it down. You know, like chord progression wise, and then you just have like that little riff that comes in and just balances it out with some like shriekingness. It's awesome. I don't know. I love it. I'm all in favor of that song.
Yeah, it's like you're not gonna hum that guitar riff just walking down the street going. You're not gonna be like do 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 do.
Yeah.
Do, 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 that was Let's Go to Bed.
Right on.
If everyone knows, just so everyone knows. But you're not gonna be humming the guitar riff to this song.
It is a little bit. I mean, I'd be like on those edgier days, maybe.
Yeah.
What about short-term effect?
Short-term effect?
Mm-hmm. Next track.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
I love the drums on it.
Yeah, it's like a little note to make, but it's like one of many on this album of like just that driving drums really carry the fucking song. It's crazy how many of these like where the drums are just as like catchy and like almost like guitar riffs more, you know, like, which is strange for a lot of songs. A lot of Cure songs, not so much. As soon as you hear them, maybe we just like know them and love them so much that like as soon as you hear that, like if somebody was just playing that beat, I would know that, you know. It's like pretty rare for me, you know, just to be like, as soon as like that and like Figurehead in particular or something, you know, you're just like, as soon as you fucking hear that, it's like, you know, it's that song. You don't even have to like play any of the guitar parts over it or anything, you know. And it's just like,
man, when I first got a drum set and kind of sorted it out, like drum beats off of Pornography.
Yeah, I would imagine that'd be like the bread and butter to somebody like just starting out, where you're like, fuck yeah. It's like, it's a whole song right there. You got it.
Yeah,
you just
man.
hear all those parts probably in your head as you're playing. You don't even have to play along to a recording or anything, you know. It's just
dude, when I was in marching band and I was playing the quads, like all the toms, you know, like I would play this like drum. I'm gonna call them riffs, drum riffs, off for Pornography on the quads, like, and they're so perfect because they're so tonal, and you can like riff like rhythmically and melodically, and I think it's like with Lowell, like, you know, things I think that kind of led up to this, like you could see it on Faith, like kind of like Faith is like some of my favorite drumming of his, and this Pornography is like flat out like full on badass Lowell drumming. Like it's his best, man. Like how many songs, like how many I'm a drummer, so it's kind of hard for me to like
but yeah, I mean,
I pay attention to drums anyways, but like you not being a drummer, like,
exactly.
This is like a drum riff album, like that's hard to do. Like, you know.
Yeah, even though like I feel like Disintegration is close with that. I mean, there's still like if you play like the drum beat to like Homesick, I probably wouldn't be like, oh fucking Homesick, like right off the bat, you know. Like, it's like pretty much every song on this album. Like if you just start playing it on drums, I'd be like, yeah, all right, you know, this is totally fucking Hanging Gardener. I mean, all of them are so distinct rhythms and like I
would say drum wise, Disintegration is the second, like the only other record I could record I could think of.
Yeah.
Like you're like with like where it's like you could recognize the song by the drum riff or the drum parts, like because they're so distinct and dope.
Yeah. I think like Faith should be that way, but I almost kind of feel like if you played me some Faith beats, I probably wouldn't really. Yeah, they seem like they are, but they're not really. Some of them, but not really, you know. I feel like lyrically too, like a lot of Asylum lyrics. There was like a quote of like where Robert was reading again of like a lot of mental health books and like books on actual like insane asylums, and this one in particular was one
that's so bad to read when you're doing acid.
Yeah, it was just it's like, well,
he's asking
for
this shit. Like,
yeah, so which is another sub question actually that we probably shouldn't get into. Was he asking for it? You know, so there's that. We'll get back to that idea. Remind me of that if I don't bring it up. But Hanging Garden going into drums, another super distinct drum intro.
Oh, snap.
So I mean, like you hear that fucking drums, you know exactly
what's up.
Yeah, and it's and again, like I said, that song in particular, when you hear that bass line come in, that's like the whole fucking song, you know. And it's like, and then throwing that little, again, like the guitar riff, much like 100 Years, where it has that little like, you know, I mean, it's just like a riff, and that's all he's really playing over that, and that's crazy and so cool. Definitely was a highlight of our singles only show in Charlotte, was hearing that. Like, it's one that kind of not played that frequently over the years. It was always, considering it was a single, you know, it's like getting the
that shit made my day.
Getting to hear Hanging Garden, it's fucking good. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's solid, man. And it's like, yeah, you don't hear it much, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was so good to hear this, and they nailed it. Like they did a really good version of it.
I still love like the idea, like if you write a song like that and you didn't play it at every show. I mean, it's like, that sounds so good. Why wouldn't you play it?
Why would you not?
Yeah, it's just, I know. It's like, how could you like just like, it's like, it's so good. But I guess they got a lot to choose from. But
I know, totally. And I think this is like, this one, it's one of like Simon's bass lines.
Mm-hmm.
That's like Simon and his like his badassery. Like that riff is so gnarly. It's so gnarly, and he nails it. And that shit's hard. Like, you know, playing that riff, that's a fucking hard bass part, man. Like,
and it's weird because it's not
so awesomely,
and it's not weird in like a Smith bass line kind of way where it's just like doing some really. I mean, it really is just like the chords. But he's like just playing it with like such like badass, like you're saying, and just like
just rhythmically,
it's
just
on
it,
somehow making like just those 3 chords. I think it is like just fucking the whole song. Like, I mean, the fact that you can just build the whole song on that and it doesn't get old by like the second chorus. I mean, it's just like, damn, that's just rad, man. It's like, but
and Hanging Garden's like one of those early, like, I remember just watching shit with you when we were kids and like seeing the video.
Yeah.
Then there's
a ridiculously weird and cool video where they're just like wearing this crazy mask, which is, I'm sure there's some
like shit's
story behind.
Weird,
trench coats and shit. And this is around the album, which is worth noting. I think like Faith maybe not quite dove into the whole what would become like the actual Cure image, but like definitely by Pornography, he's got like the big hair and the full on eye makeup and everything's never turning back at that point. This is the first song I've said on numerous occasions too that piqued my interest from the old Jeff Butler collection there. That was Hanging Garden. Strange enough, aside from the singles, you know, as far as liking songs here and there, but I remember just being like kind of mocking it, even like falling to the walls, what, you know, but at the same time it had seeped into my skin whether I liked it or not, and I was like,
because you like Pornography more than you like Faith, right?
Nah, ultimately now I would take Faith over Pornography, but more just because on an average day I'd probably listen to Faith and enjoy it more than Pornography. Like I like the like uniqueness of Pornography. It makes me intriguing to me, you know, or just like it is like the like we talked about the danger side of the Cure. But But yeah, and it's weird going even back to earlier topics of like our first impressions and stuff too. I felt like it's worth noting of like maybe
first impressions. That should be a segment.
first impressions.
First impressions.
But it's weird. Like I felt like, and maybe like the actual content doesn't back it up when I look at it now, but I felt like as a kid, and we've talked about this, I think maybe in an episode where it got cut out, but like I felt like around like, you know, the peak of disintegration and stuff when we were really getting into the Cure, like a lot of pornography was frowned upon in a sense. And like I remember when we bought the albums and stuff, and when I was like diving through them all one at a time in the first few months of it, it was kind of like noted that this was their like we don't give a fuck album, and it was like they were making fun of it and stuff at the time. Like a lot of interviews where he's like, yeah, maybe I just interpreted that as like I was trying to break up the band, he's saying, because it was like we were just imploding. And so I kind of always took it with a grain of salt as like this was like they're just their fucking crazy drug album or whatever, you know. And it took me longer to dive into it because of that, I think, you know. But like I don't know, did you feel the same way where I was like a little...
I see what you're saying, like, and this is pre-internet, motherfuckers.
Yeah. So you have like one interview that you've got from like a Rolling Stone that you're going on for like 9 months. So.
And they're always like beating around the bush with shit in the media and whatever, and like, you know, and like Simon left the band and like things completely changed with the band. Like after this record, like Simon's out, and was it like Japanese Whispers was the next, right?
Yeah. We'll talk about that mostly in the end, but I think I know what you're saying as far as like we're just that there's a lot of weight that like shifted after this album for better, especially for kids that like see where
and we
went.
know that in retrospect now.
Yeah.
When we were kids, it's like, how do we sum that? Like, so that's gonna have an impact. Cause like when we were listening to this, like we're fucking kiddos, and how are we gonna understand all this bullshit? Like when we, you know, once you're older, you can like wrap your head around shit and go like, oh, you know,
stress, drugs, you know, this and that. Yeah. Everything just like made more sense. But yeah,
and they were like in their early 20s.
And I always felt like I dismissed this album too because I felt like because it only had the one single, it was kind of dismissed as like the crappy album or whatever, you know. Like I felt like, oh, Hanging Garden's just a weird fucking. Even going back to Hanging Garden, because we were talking about that, like I don't even really know like single hunting wise. Like I love it, and of course it caught my ear, but I don't think I would have like grabbed that as the one single. It almost did seem like Chris Perry picked it, I think I read, and like management wise, it was just like, well, none of these are fucking singles, so I might as well just blindly grab this one because it's like, you know. And it was like I wouldn't probably have grabbed it if I had to pick one song. I probably would have gone with like Strange Day.
Wait, let me guess.
Which one? Did you hear me?
A Strange Day.
Yeah, Strange Day, I think.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, why would that not be the fucking single?
It's like the most melodic and kind of throws back to the old stuff still a little bit more in the future. But yeah, that seemed more like the obvious one. But like,
you know?
Yeah, it's a little weird. I don't know. And like, I think that had a lot to do with like the point being of like not really sure what the hell was up with this album because it had like this one single that wasn't really even like the best song, and like, you know what I mean? It was just like, well, clearly nobody cared about this album as much as they should have, you know? So it was like, I don't know. So that's kind of weird.
If I were to like, you know, say be Chris Perry, like picking out like the single and I guess just trying to like justify like how someone could not pick A Strange Day.
Yeah, and it's weird. And maybe Robert fought for it. I don't really remember who picked. I think I read something fairly recently that Chris Perry picked it, but like maybe Robert was on board. I don't really remember, but like,
or not caring.
Yeah, he probably was just like, whatever the fuck, I don't care at this point. But
he's just like, do you know what it just did? Like I'm taking you pick whatever.
Yeah,
like, I'm going through some shit. Like
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But if like, you know, so say you don't pick like the obvious, so you pick like I'll pick something edgy, like the Hanging Garden isn't the most offensive edgy thing.
Yeah, true.
But like, do you go shocking then if you're not going with the pop? A Strange Day, like, there's other like more shocking, like, oof. You want to make an impact of like.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in
like
comparison,
the darker.
When you look at the other shit, where it's like, well, yeah, definitely, like, Cold is not gonna be the single, even though it's like awesome song and stuff like that.
But if you want to make a point, though, like, put out Cold.
Yeah,
you just
might
like,
as
hey,
well.
this record's a motherfucker, guys.
Yeah.
Like, dive on in.
Yeah, but
like,
I guess it's like the heart of like album, and I think just that idea of like it's an album, it's not a single. I mean, kind of like what they ended up like trying to do with Blood Flowers, where it's just like there isn't a single. That's what they said right off the bat with Blood Flowers, but by that point it was a little too far, But I mean, that's kind of what they probably should have done with this. Just like there isn't a single. Listen to the whole album, It's
I bet there's debate of that, like.
Yeah, I wonder if that was even stemmed from this. I wonder, but I don't know. Interesting. What about Siamese Twins? That's my new favorite, actually. Strange Day always used to be my fucking go-to song from this album, but Siamese Twins, god damn, that song is so good. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably my hands-down favorite now, I think. But
get down.
It's like it's got all of it. It like really has enough catchiness where it's there, and it's just got the fucking darkness and the like fucking, I don't know, it's haunting, as cheesy as that sounds. And it gets in a haunting song. Cheesy, it's just like, you know what I mean?
Try not to use the internet for my notes, but I'm gonna read my notes for this one. Siamese Twin lyrics: "You're nothing. Is it always like this?"
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that last line is just genius. Is that like the way they just break it down too, and it just repeats, so good.
It just like starts off with that beat.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's just like so slow and sweet.
And I feel like, lyrically, it's like we said earlier with 100 Years, where it is kind of like that kind of awesome, like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about, but it's awesome. Like this one, it's like, this really feels like you're in the belly of the beast when you're listening to it. Like he's like fucking in it, and you're like, whatever it is and whatever mood you're in, you're in it too, and it's like you feel like you're right there with him when you're listening to the lyrics of this.
What a way to round out an album. Very thoughtful.
Yeah.
Or round out a side of an album, and then.
Yeah, every song is well placed on this album. That's definitely a huge.
Yes.
It's like you couldn't really shuffle any of these and have it be in some other spot. Like a lot of even Cure albums in particular, it's fun to just kind of think about like, well, if you shuffled this around, maybe it would keep the flow going in a different way, and like even for better or worse, just for fun's sake. But like this one is
especially with Kiss Me.
Yeah. Yeah. So many albums you could do that, and this one's just kind of like, nah, I can't imagine like side 2 starting any other way than with Figurehead.
Yeah.
So
what's the next one?
Figurehead side 2. How about that segue? But
Jesus, what's the first? Not to put you on the spot. What's the first the opening line on that?
Sharp and open, leave me alone. That one?
Yeah.
Remember, we this is the first day that Donald and I officially ever recorded music together. I feel like it was in the garage, and we played 2 terrible covers. We played this and Perfect Kiss. And further noting the genius of this drum beat and the way Donald played it, as far as I could tell, where basically all he had to do was play the drum beat to Figurehead. And I think I went doo 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 on a keyboard, totally wrong notes, totally wrong key, but like it was enough to like for me just to sing over the beat, and we could have a cover, And it's like that was.
I played that fucking beat to a fucking T, and I used since I was in marching band, I had all these different like fuzzy mallets and shit, and I knew enough about the band to like, I'm fucking busting out some fucking fuzzy mallets on this motherfucker. I totally remember that, dude.
And I remember distinctly remembering, you're like, let's do Figurehead. And I was like, really? You want to try like In Between Days or something? Like I had like the little from the cassette lyric notes. I'm like, let's fucking do this.
Yeah.
And I remember just being like, wow, it's such a cool that you could just sing over a beat that much, and it was dreadful. I was tone deaf and totally out of time and shit. But like, and we had like the great moment of the recording where my voice cracks and it was like, too many secrets, too many lies. I was like, But like, it's hard to fucking sing, even for a little adolescent boy that hasn't even fully gone through puberty yet. It's hard to hit those Robert notes. But yeah, that was a distinct that we did Perfect Kiss by New Order, which was equally as brutal. But at least I had part of the keyboard down for that. And two originals. But yeah, it was Figurehead. That was like such a weird fucking, then like that idea of like my poor parents like hearing us covering that song. Like what? Like Perfect Kiss makes a little more sense, the New Order song, but like hearing your fucking kids like singing the lyrics to Figurehead in the garage, that would be a little fucking weird. Like as a parent now, I'd be like, oh shit, what's going on? But
I know. And there's so many beautiful aspects of that story, like that I think tie into like the sincerity and like why it's sincere. This album is, they keep it simple. It's not a wall of sound at a little deeper listen. It's like they still keep it simple, where it's just 4 or 5 parts.
Yeah.
Like they'll take some toms and overdub some drum parts maybe, and it sounds great, and then they'll take like 1 or 2 keyboard parts and they'll like run them through some effects, and then there'll be like 1 guitar part maybe, or in like a bit, it's like very simple, just like 4 or 5 parts or whatever. That's my point.
Yeah.
That it's something that's, and what makes it sincere is like it's something like some fucking kids pre-internet can figure out a song, figure out how to play it with fuzzy mallets, like figure out like we can get more reverb if we record it in the garage, and we never played in the fucking garage. Like we always practiced in the fucking basement. So that was weird. It's like it was like our first road gig.
Knowing that my family would hear us and make fun of everything we did. Yeah. It was
because there'd be more reverb in there.
Yeah.
And there's like tons of reverb on everything on the record. Like,
totally.
And that's why your parents should have been concerned, because it's like it is a fucking weird thing to be screaming over and over again in the garage.
Yeah.
But
like whatever. He's having fun.
Yeah. But,
too many secrets, too many lies.
Oh, that's so great. Oh.
I will never be clean again.
I know you're screaming.
I will never be clean. Like you're like fucking 13, 12, man.
Your parents really dropped the ball on that.
Like, whatever. He'll be fine.
I want to say it was pre-internet, so they didn't, but they didn't know, but they heard it. Like they should have been like, what?
Denial goes a long way. It's because we didn't take him to the mall. What is he all mad about? What is he
I know.
What's his problem? He didn't even have a girlfriend. It's not like he got dumped or anything. But,
I know.
But yeah, so Figurehead, that was a dear part in my heart.
Yeah, that song does always have a special spot. And yeah, it's just so accessible.
Yeah. Find that recording. Maybe we can put it on the website for this. But I'd be willing to bear that horrible feeling.
Maybe a snippet.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll go in and auto-tune it. Or fix the pitch.
Yeah, strange day, man.
Yeah, so that's another one.
That's some bitch.
That's another one that I always liked, but In Orange made me love more for some reason. seeing it on there. That was like when they played on that, and was like, it's like, oh yeah, that song fucking rules. And then go back and listen to it, kind of just based on like the smoke and the swirly. I love that guitar part, you know.
Yeah.
Like just how fucking brilliant that is. And again, just so like, I feel like that's a great ode to like the production. Probably Phil Thornley, maybe it was a Robert idea.
Yes.
But like just like some cool trickeries as far as arrangement and stuff on that song. Like something I didn't realize fully until later. I didn't really think about it, but the guitar part that is technically the solo, when it cuts out on like that middle part where like the drums and the bass cut out and it goes down 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 down, like that's like that's the same guitar part that goes through the whole fucking song, but it just sounds so much more epic when they cut out the bass and the drums, you know, like after the bridge, I guess it is. And it's weird when it's like something you've already heard 2 times, I think, even by that point. But like when it kicks in, you're like, yeah, guitar solo. I mean,
yeah,
I'd put that above any like Slash solo or anything, you know. It's just like that fucking nails it. As soon as you hear it, you just hear like that swirling flange and like cool guitar shit, you know. It's
like, I know exactly what you mean, man. Like, this song is shoegazy as fuck.
Yeah.
And it's like all the things that I love, and just like swirly sounds and swirly guitars, and like there's like a keyboard riff in that, and it's like a riff by me, like by riff I mean like a couple notes,
3 like descending notes, yeah.
and it just like has this little waver to it. And it's just like the most beautiful fucking sound, and like, oh, and they just did it so well. And that song is so simple. Like, you could drop anything out in that, and if it was just soloed, it would be like, damn. Like, the guitar solo you were talking about. Like,
yeah.
Literally any part of that song could be soloed at any point, and it would be just as dramatic. And God, it's fantastic. And like, why was that not the fucking single? Like, like if you want something that was accessible and like whatever.
And even on like the bare surface of like obvious, like just Strange Day, like the atmosphere conveys that so much. Like it just feels like anytime you're in like a day and you're like, this is just fucking weird. And like you could play that in like the movie of your life as being the back soundtrack, you know what I mean? Where it's just like, it's just like there's enough atmosphere in this song to start a fucking planet, you know? I mean, it's like it's so much atmosphere that just conveys all that, you know? I love it. It's one that I always have my secret set lust referring back to that idea of like, it doesn't ever seem absurd that they would like have the possibility of playing that one, because they do throw it in enough, but like it's always in the back of my head where that's definitely one where I'm like, oh, that'd be so fucking cool.
Like, you better play that, motherfuckers.
Yeah. I feel like once maybe I've heard that. I don't think I've heard it hardly at all, like in any of the shows I've seen it. I've never really looked at.
Really? I always
I don't think they play it that much. I think I saw it maybe once or twice, but
that's dumb.
Yeah, they should have it in every so many songs. They should play.
I know.
They should play 8-hour shows. Cold is another fan favorite.
Damn.
That one's a pretty. I love watching there's a few of those old clips, like that one in particular where he's wearing like the pink long sleeve shirt. You know, I think it's like a French.
That's exactly what I was talking about. Man.
Like that shit's great. Where like when they do Cold, and like, is that the one where like Simon has like the floor pedals on the bass, like the organ, and he does like the like, that's pretty awesome. Like, just seeing that, like, oh yeah, that would be cool to shit to see live in any format. But yeah, that's a good one. Such a weird one where it's just like deep cut through and through, but it's one of those ones that just gets better over time. Like a fine wine.
Yeah.
It's like, this is such a good song.
Yeah, it is one of those ones like I grew to appreciate, like, you know, the older I got.
Yeah.
And fuck, man, like just how that song's set up.
Yeah.
Sonically, you know, just with like you're saying, with like Simon playing like bass and like a little like synth synth bass pedals, you know.
Yeah.
It's one of the best.
It's a
one of
very
the best on the album, man.
Yeah, it's a very like deep cut, but in the sense that like this song could not be on any other album but Pornography, you know?
Yeah.
It has like the whole name like ice into my heart, the eternal lyric.
Jesus.
I think that got like cut from one of our other episodes, maybe not, but we're shocked that that mumbled line reappears in Last Dance. I was late to stumble across that for other people that it's like, oh yeah, it's like some kind of throwback. Has that been
fact
haven't
checked?
officially. I think it goes without saying. I think it's pretty 98% confirmed. I would say at this point, but yeah, it's in there. I fucking hear it.
I like
now
that
every
there's
time.
like a whole Bigfoot-esque thing about like a fucking.
It's like Nessie. It's in there.
It's a Sasquatch.
I fucking hear it every time I hear it now. So whether it's in there or not, I don't know. But
you're gonna have all these like I bet soon there's gonna be a video of you on YouTube like I'm here in the bunker.
Here it is. I'm gonna a big pointy arrow to the.
You're gonna play some grainy footage of the song somehow.
Yeah. As you can hear. What is he talking about?
It's a grassy knoll, man.
Don't you see it, man? Don't you hear it?
It's also clear.
It all makes sense. Drink the Kool-Aid.
Down in the wolf den.
And it's weird that it doesn't pull up from cold. It just kind of like fucking nosedives into the song Pornography, which is it's like, and that's it. That's the album. Like I feel like the song Pornography. How do you feel about that? I feel like I hear like a lot of mixed things about the song Pornography.
It's I'm of kind of two stances on it, where one, it's either filler, like they just didn't have a song to round it out, where they could have ended with Cold, which has just been like, damn it, like whoa, ha! But you know, with a descending and a crash, you know, you have to have the crash and you have to have the smoldering pile of everything and
violence and yeah.
And it's, you know, to me it's like it starts off with like the dumbest drum beat on the album. But Lowell played the shit out of it. Like it's a tricky little thing, and he stuck to it and nailed the whole part. But it's like the least memorable drum riff on the album.
And
but
songs.
It adds. It's like,
but
you know, he's just doing like a little chaotic, repetitive thing, and like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy about the song, and it's like,
feel a little more reassured that you say that. Yeah, because I totally feel the same way. People go crazy over it, and I don't know if it's just because it's like anything.
So wacky.
And anything off of Pornography, people are like, yay, and they played this at like one of the Madison Square Garden shows, and like everybody's ecstatic.
Dope, like,
and it is awesome and totally cool. And I'm assuming most people were happy just in the sense because it's rare-ish, you know, and like what, you know. But I mean, like, yeah, as far as actual songs, I mean, I think it's great and it fits the album just as like a concept album wise. Yeah, it needs to be on there and it rounds it out, and it's just fucking weird and intense like the whole album. But yeah, as far as like you're saying, like for how memorable every beat is on this album, and like it's just like nothing, the whole song I feel like is just not memorable for me. Like as many times as I've listened to this album, it's always like that weird sample, like to the point now when they play it live and it isn't as like jimbly and like jumbled up and like mix wise, like where he's actually saying the words and shit. Like I don't even like really catch that it's that. I mean, you catch that it is the song, but it doesn't sound anything like the recording, really. You know, I'm like, oh wow. And I could totally live without it. I guess more importantly, how you feel about the actual title, Pornography being the title. There was some cool controversy with the band and that, but like,
I love it. I love everything about it.
Yeah,
like
it's a good title.
You know, it's like
You don't think it's grasping it like controversy a little too much, or do you think it's?
I think no.
Yeah.
I think it's a joke. Like
yeah.
Some of that old Bob Smith humor,
right?
Like,
let's
and
name it
funny.
Something
like
absurd.
it's funny as shit because like pornography, like oh my god,
right?
It's like. A band naming like that band Women, like Google that, like a band coming, in this Google pornography, see what comes up.
Yeah.
And it's like that same shock, like oh, pornography.
Yeah.
He was some foresight.
There was a good little bit in the 10 Measure Years thing where he was talking about that, where he liked it because it was everybody had a different like definition of pornography. If you ask them, what pops into your mind when you hear pornography, and it was like he was like kind of jokingly saying like Lowell and Simon just kept saying like, well, sex, obviously sex. All just goes back to sex, and then like their friend Bill like said it's like a hit parade where it's like gross pornography of that kind of thing, and Robert had like this whole spiel, and there's a great little paragraph that if you want to read it in 10 Imaginary Years, but it like narrowed it down to basically it's not the subject, which is pornographic, but the interpretation of it, it's like, to paraphrase, it was something where he's like, it's like a person fucking a monkey isn't pornographic, it's the way people like interpret it that that's the gross part, or the whatever the pornographic side of it is the interpretation of the art or whatever, which kind of falls into this album too, and like the darkness of it and stuff. It's like that, like I don't know. It's how you perceive it. I don't know. It's kind of cool. It fits.
It's like you could maybe look at this record as like an overindulgence.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you could look at what they're doing as like a critique of, or an honest statement, or it's all how you want to view this record. Like I look at it as a very sincere, like kind of a kind of a delicate record,
Yeah.
And I think some people would listen to it and just like, man, this is crazy. Like, listen to all that chaos. Where it's not chaotic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even taking his perspective, if you take the sex angle of it, like pornography, of people just having sex, it's just people having sex. But like, if you have the footage or whatever, and whatever you're doing to watching the people, that's the pornographic side of it. It's your interpretation of these people just doing something anyway. So it makes total sense.
And tisn't that art?
Yes. Damn, he's good.
I know. Damn you.
So then you record a great album like this. You got to take it on the road. They make the fatal flaw of once again, like they didn't
going on the road.
They didn't learn anything from Faith, that you got to play these songs every night now that you've made this super heavy, intense album.
Yeah.
So
they've been steady slugging it out. Like,
yeah. They were exhausted when Faith came out, and they were going on the road with everybody dying and singing songs about dying and death. And now you got this.
Let's revisit that. Like, as a band going back on the road, like it was such a nice, fun time.
Exactly.
Super
intense. Apparently, the temperature in the spring of '82 was like super hot. They're all sweaty all the time. Exhausted
warming,
from making the album. They're wearing lots of leather. Playing every night.
I've got all this hair now.
Everybody's head's got like 15 extra pounds of hair on it.
And they're all fucked. Like
they're all drunk as fuck, high on drugs. They all hate each other.
High on drugs, man.
Even the crew hated each other at this point, apparently. Like, the light people were fighting with the sound people, and Lowell's fighting with them. Everybody's fighting with each other. And Like mixed reviews as far as the actual shows. Some people, it sounds like very like replacement-y, where some people say you catch them on the one night, it would be the best show ever, and the next it's like the biggest pile of shit, where everyone's just like a jumbled mess and hate each other. So it's hard to say.
And they toured the States on this too, right? Like,
I think so. I can't confirm that off the top
they
of my head, but I'm assuming.
Touring the States, Cherry.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not actually, because I don't think it even charted in the U.S. and like it seemed pretty short. Like there was only one round. Like with Faith, they did like a couple rounds of everything, but they might not even have made it to the U.S. on this one. But
I feel like
then,
it is.
Because even like the 27th of May, when did I say this came out? Yeah, like May, right?
Yeah, early May.
Yeah, so like the 27th of May was the infamous Fight Night. And there's a great Lowell's book,
Fight Night.
Is where you gotta read the whole fucking story of this. But like, as far as Cure folklore, the night where Simon and Robert finally come to blows and just beat the shit out of each other in this bar, where basically it's all over a bar tab. Like somebody thought Simon was Robert. I guess they said like even the bartender wasn't even a pushy guy, and he's just like, somebody's gonna pay for these fucking drinks, man. And then like Simon's like, I'll not pay for these fucking drinks. And then they get Robert, and Robert's like, just it's my tab, I'll pay for it. And he's like, fuck you. And then they like start beating the shit out of each other apparently. And so that's pretty bad news. Like, and Lowell's like not even involved, and they beat the hell out of each other. Robert just like straight up splits. Like he's like, I'm out of here, fuck this. And apparently they had like 3 days off anyway. And then from what I gathered, they only had like one show left after that. And then there's like a really cool, like the way Lowell writes it out in the book, like where Robert's dad was like the voice of reason. I just love like the imagery of like Robert being like, I quit, I'm going home. And then like his dad's like, no, Robert, you got to go back and finish your obligations, son. And he's like,
I don't want to, Dad.
Yeah, it's just like he's like sitting there with his like big hair and makeup on over like a bowl of cornflakes or whatever. And he's like, "Now you made a lot of promise. A lot of people saved up their money to go to your show, Robert." It's like, "Oh, I guess you're right, Dad." It's like, all right, so they play like one last show that was apparently a fucking total disaster. Where, like by the end of it, like they'd all switched instruments and shit, and then they played it
like the song was like, it was like the title of the song was funny, and applicable to the moment. Like I forget what it was, but it's like the end is here or something. Like
their buddy's like singing. He's like, Lowell's a dickhead, Robert's a dickhead. Simon's the only motherfucker. And like Robert's like, fuck you, and throws the drumsticks at him.
We're all a bunch of cunts. We're all a bunch of cunts.
After watching a whole set of like pornography songs, everyone's just like, what the fuck is happening?
Like so a little sprinkle of whimsy on that.
It's like awesome time machine shows. That would be the one where you're just like, wow, this band's never gonna last.
That's literally on my notes. Time machine show.
That would be pretty awesome.
But
like,
yeah,
wow,
like
dicks. Like this band's never gonna last.
Like just to follow it, like go have a time machine and go back and just like follow the tour and see like all the shows.
Yeah.
And see it round out like that.
And just so weird that it's Robert and Simon too, like from about like Head on the Door up, like they're like the most like inseparable two, it seems,
they're
dudes, it's like
man.
they're just like whatever the fuck happened, and then they repaired that, it just seems like, damn, it's so weird to just think of those two like fighting anybody, let alone each other. It's just like so weird, but I don't know, I guess that's what goes down. But I mean, that's the end of Simon for 18 months from there on. That's like a huge, and like, if you think about it, like
Cure dog years.
Yeah, when you really look at the full picture, it's like that's actually literally the end of a Cure, of like early Cure. That's a huge change after that, because then it's the quick version. Of course, everybody listening to this would know, but like, takes the break, plays with Susie for a while, does the glove. Eventually, Japanese Whispers would become of the singles they make, and then even the top, which is crazy to think too. Like in the 18 months without Simon, he records with Susie, records The Glove, records all the singles that would make up Japanese Whispers, and The Top in 18 months.
Yeah.
That's like a year and a half. And it like does like basically 4 albums in like a year and a half. It's like, Jesus Christ.
And this is pre just like getting on a laptop in your fucking attic. Or basement. I'm sorry.
All like really good shit too. Like dicking around, you know. It's like, good Lord. That's amazing.
Yeah, 18 months.
And
that's crazy. You know, pornography is just such like the end of an era, like or the start of a new, or but it's such a transitional phase, and it's so chaotic. Like,
I mean, when you think of that break, so many things did change in the sense of, it was the end of that Cure, in the sense that Simon would be gone for a little bit. Lowell will never play drums on a Cure record again.
And it's like, does Lowell ever do anything again?
Yeah, true. That's all like other, you know, and like Robert just full on takes the helm in the solo artist way, basically. From my perspective, it seems that way, you know, or it's like the way like a solo artist would just have his friends and stuff playing albums, you know. I mean, it's like
that's kind of how I look at it too, man. That's a really, it's a really good way to sum it up, you know.
Man. That's weird. So in a sense, it is the breakup of the Cure, you know.
Yeah.
At least phase 1. I mean, they'll never be that again, you know.
It's like when like like with a company or something, like you know, when they start flailing and like some other company will come and buy them up, and like there's a restructuring.
Yeah.
And it's just like, new lines of authority are redefined, and just how things are going to happen from here on out are redefined.
But I mean, it had to, really. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, you can't. We've touched on this in the past too, of like, these albums are so perfect and heavy that it would take away from them, even if they put out like a shittier version of Pornography right after this that just wasn't as good, you know. And it would just be like, and then like another like crappier version of Faith, and then just be like, you know. It's like, I mean, he's so good at that, whether it's intentional or not, you know.
Or what if it was something where it was, say if they took, the angle of like 100 years. It was just stripped down with a drum machine and like some keys and a bass guitar, and and some, like, what if they took that angle? Like, that would have been stunning. I imagine they would have put out, like, they would have made some beautiful shit.
Yeah, I mean,
in that vein,
there's no denying his talent and the band, everyone involved's talent. I mean, I think they could have obviously put out,
but just where the band
stuff.
was.
Yeah,
just where the band was, not just but the individuals, of course, but just where they were, like what they were making and what they were doing.
Yeah, I don't think you could keep that level of intensity going where it would have.
Or they could have made the Top.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, I think even the Top is like really good because it came off of like the synth stuff from like The Walk, and like just like what, like the crazy factor, just keep changing it up more on a faster pace even at that point, or just like totally unexpected, and like even if they had like somehow been able to make Disintegration right after Pornography, that
would have been like, dope. That would have been the best.
Maybe, but I don't know.
To hear that.
I think it would have taken away from it, because I feel like so much of Disintegration's great because
dude, someone has to make a fanfic. Like, there's like, like people like just the most like played out trite thing that every show and like novelist, sci-fi novelist or whatever, it's always like what if the Germans won?
Yeah.
Like if you could do like fan fiction a la that of what if Disintegration came right after. Can they CGI that?
Killed himself right after that. There's no way.
Can they CGI that? We could.
Just add.
They'll add Jar Jar Binks in the back playing keys or something.
Yeah,
But I can't. I would love to hear that. That would be so dope.
Yeah, it would be cool. I don't know. But I feel like on a more serious note, just of like how the weight of disintegration is because it's referring back to that in a sense too. You know, it still has like the pop and everything that had been established from Head on the Door and Kiss Me, but then it also tapped back into the darkness. You know, like it was almost like the relapse of like, you know, like when the detective's like, fuck it, and he takes a drink again right before he goes out into the battle or something, you know, you're like, all right, it's getting a little fucking nasty again, let's see what happens.
I promised I wouldn't do this again.
Yeah, or something, I don't know, but it's like, to me, I think that's kind of the charm of disintegration too, is that it has maturity behind it, you know, like, I think it would seem a little less valid if it came right after Pornography, because it was just a bunch of fucking kids that were still just trying to like be like pissed off at everything and depressed, you know, be like, oh, here they go again, kind of thing, you know.
Disintegration being invalidated by Pornography.
No, if it had come right after Pornography like that, like, or they hadn't really grown any, you know, like just knowing that it had only been like a year. so, you know what I mean?
Well, there's like a maturity to disintegration that, disintegration couldn't have happened without that expanse of time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, and I feel like you can feel it in disintegration. You can feel where it's like a lot of those old. Yeah, well, you can feel like a lot of those like
the regret that of all the albums in between.
No, not regrets, but living fucking life, which I guess includes regrets,
which is full of regrets.
I don't know. If that's the shit you're regretting, I'd hate to see what my life is. It's like, oh yeah, I'm recording Head on the Door. That was a horrible time in my life.
Doing whatever the fuck I wanted.
Yeah, trudging through all that.
Lol, right? And Lol's fine. Whatever.
But I don't know. So I don't know. Closing thoughts on Pornography, though. What do you think? I think it wraps up that era of the Cure pretty matter of factly. I think.
Yeah.
I kind of feel the same way. Where I definitely feel like it aged well in the sense it's like it took me a while to process it. I always kind of knew what it was coming at, but at the same time, I knew what it was, whether I wanted to dive into it or not at that phase of my life, and like, but I mean, even. Well, jokingly, of that phase of my life was still like I don't know, at least 7-8 years after it recorded. You know, like I mean, we never got it in the moment really, but at the same time, yeah, it's something. It's right behind, like I said, with Faith. It's probably one that I appreciate more and more every year. You know, like it's one that I kind of like get it a bit more every year. Whether that just means I'm falling apart more or not, I don't know. But like, you know, I feel like it's something you could kind of pick and choose a lot more and appreciate over time.
This is the Stand By Me.
Yeah.
Like the movie of
Cure albums.
It's like you want to go see a dead body.
Yeah.
And there's like some sweet nostalgia.
Yeah. It's got a lot of that. It's got, the sweet nostalgia,
tied into looking at a corpse.
Bystander of seeing something disgusting happening in front of you.
and then you can reflect back sweetly and fondly upon it, you know?
Yeah, totally. Somehow. Yeah. We'll leave it on that note, I reckon. How about we'll see you next time. I guess we dive next into the gray years of Simon-ness. I guess we'll just
Simonlessness.
The easiest way to just be Japanese Whispers next. We won't really do it single by single, but I think we'll maybe
this
a little
is the one
glove
you don't count
action.
as a record.
Yeah, well, I mean it isn't really, but it is.
Jesus, man.
Well,
you're so dismissive.
I'm just being technical. But, let's do Japanese Whispers and Glove. We need to talk about the Glove and the B-sides of the Glove, or the demos of the Glove. So we'll dive into that, and
I like where we're going.
yeah, it's quite a shift. So we'll shift with
some
you
murky
guys.
waters.
So thanks so much for listening.
Thank you, guys.
Gavin.
This is Donald.
And we'll catch you soon. Talk hard.
Wow.
Be sure to subscribe to the Holy Hour podcast on iTunes. Over there you can rate us, rank us, and never miss an episode by subscribing. Also, check out Instagram, the Holy Hour podcast, where you can find the latest updates on topics for episodes and updates on episodes. Again, that's Instagram, the Holy Hour podcast. And for each specific episode, be sure to go over to Facebook and like the Holy Hour podcast group on Facebook, where you can catch individual threads for each episode and get little extra tidbits for each episode and state your opinions. We want to hear from you, whether it's there or Instagram or on iTunes or directly. Email me at gavinconner@gmail.com. If you have anything you would love to contribute to the show, a cure story, a cure memory, an idea for a topic, we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to send me an email at gavinconner@gmail.com. And be sure to also go on over to curefandocumentary.com and check out the latest progress of Push, a Cure Fan documentary, Arusha Baker's story, and help out, donate some money, check out the updates, subscribe to all the social media there so you can follow along. And while you're spending your money wisely, be sure to go on over to mixedupgifts.com, where you can take care of all your shopping needs. There's Cure-related merchandise there. There's all your favorites. Susie, there's Nick Cave pins, Morrissey patches, there's Morrissey cookbooks. You can even get a Morrissey Valentine's Day card for the holiday coming up. And Ian Curtis, all your favorites are over there in some form or another. So go on over to mixedupgifts.com and get someone you love a cool gift bag of unique and creative gifts, only at mixedupgifts.com. And as a special reward to anybody that's made it through this entire episode, I present to you now the elusive first time in digital format cover of Gavin and Donald doing Figurehead. I believe we're just wee little 7th grade boys in the garage playing perhaps the worst rendition of Figurehead ever. Enjoy, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for listening.
this is Jason Cooper. You're listening to the Holy Air Podcast.